Why do you think the academic world is so hesitant to understand Bitcoin?
I think in the social sciences, which is the area of academia that I'm most familiar with, there is interestingly, profound skepticism to bottom-up grassroots phenomena. I think a lot of this comes out of a kind of inchoate political consensus that when we talk about solutions to social problems, we really need to be looking to the state. There is a kind of, I think, statist consensus within the social sciences in the formal academy that is suspicious of solutions that tend to be leaderless, maybe more anarchistic, and that are sometimes culturally identified with political opponents. So I think there's a politicization of the academy that contributes to this. That said, my experience has been that when I engage social scientists and humanities scholars one-on-one on the topic of Bitcoin, and they don't feel like they have to perform for an audience, they're a lot more receptive and very interested to hear more about the technology. So I think we're just at the beginning of a revolution in this area.
What's the best way to make Bitcoin a more common topic in academia?
There's definitely a Bitcoin movement, which is profoundly meritocratic, I would say. It's not about your credentials, it's what you can build. That is the character of the Bitcoin movement itself. Within the academy, credentials do matter quite a bit. And I think this coming together of a meritocratic, leaderless, bottom-up movement with a very hierarchical, top-down institution will serve to generate some really interesting conversations about the nature of social authority, the nature of social change, and in other words, I think the academic interest in Bitcoin is inevitable. It's just a matter of time.
Could you describe the Bitcoin movement from your perspective?
Sure. So Bitcoin originated in a movement known as the cypherpunk movement, which was a collective of primarily computer scientists, software engineers, programmers who anticipated in the 1980s that the rise of the internet would create an opportunity for mass surveillance and control by both governments and corporations that those institutional structures would not solve. So, governments don't limit their own power. Private corporate interests tend to not limit their own power. And so from the cypherpunks' point of view, the only way to limit the surveillance and control powers of these types of institutions using the internet, the only way to do that was to create cryptographic protocols that were baked into the infrastructure of the web such that they created technological limits on surveillance and control. And money was one of the first use cases they tackled. So there were a lot of efforts to create decentralized internet native money prior to Bitcoin. But the Bitcoin white paper was the first sort of synthesis of this work that gained real traction in production.
Do you expect a future with Bitcoin in academia? If so, how do you imagine it?
Certainly. I can speak for myself. I'm an academic. I'm a social scientist. I work on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a major area of my focus. But it's not about Bitcoin per se. It's about the question of, what is a social institution? So when we talk about institutions like money, like value, which is even more fundamental than money, what is it exactly that we're talking about? So I'm a social theorist, and I see Bitcoin as a phenomenon that really sheds some interesting light on these social phenomena that people have been theorizing for many, many centuries, if not millennia, that can really help us advance our understanding of these things.
At the Plan B Forum 2023, you talked about anthropological theories of value. Could you tell us more about it?
Certainly. So I'm a cultural anthropologist. I'm interested primarily in theoretical anthropology. So I'm interested in theories of society. Anthropology focuses on human behavior at scale. So I'm interested in how culture and social organization, forms of social organization like social institutions, how these create the societies that we live in. And, you know, anthropology has done a lot of work on value. In fact, one could suggest that value is the inaugural concern of the anthropological discipline, going back to its foundation in the 19th century. But there hasn't been a lot of dialogue between anthropologists and economists, which is another social science that takes questions of value as central to all of its endeavors. And so what I'm trying to do in the paper I'm presenting at Lugano is bring anthropology and economics into dialogue to develop a coherent theory of money that can be accepted by both disciplines.
Do you think this topic can expand into other academic areas, or you think there will be skepticism?
Yes, I see a unified theory of money as being productive in all social disciplines, and there currently isn't one. You know, there's I would say more consensus among economists than among anthropologists about what money really is, but I think a lot of the debates about what money is are really political polemics and political debates that we need to just leave aside so that we can do the foundational work of a social science that doesn't have to re-adjudicate these fundamental questions every single time. We need to create buildable knowledge that we can move on from to build new knowledge in the social sciences.
Could you tell us more about the Texas Bitcoin Foundation?
Absolutely. So we are a public charity. We're a 501c3 nonprofit focused on research and education pertaining to Bitcoin and political economy. So I founded the Texas Bitcoin Foundation because I perceived a gap in the intellectual work being done around Bitcoin. The question of why Bitcoin matters for human societies answered in a scientifically rigorous way that then other academic disciplines could pick up, could cite, could build on. So my work in anthropology is part of our first book project called the Satoshi Papers, Reflections on Political Economy After Bitcoin. This is a book that will be published next year. It includes essays from many different Bitcoiners from around the world, and our goal is for this to be a free and open resource for the world to learn more about why Bitcoin matters.
Can you tell us something about the book? Maybe the authors?
Yes, absolutely. So in addition to myself, we have Tour de Meester, we have Professor Sarah Krebs from Cornell University. We have Craig Warmke and Andrew Bailey as contributors, Jack Watt, Leopoldo Bebchuk, and others. So we really have some deep thinkers who have taken significant time to contribute their analysis in whatever their discipline is, their background, to why Bitcoin matters.
If there is one question you could ask Satoshi, what would it be?
I would ask Satoshi why he went dark when he did, and how he sees the next few decades in terms of the consolidation of state power.
What do you like the most about Lugano so far?
The culture is extraordinary. Every little detail is thought through. The service, the food, the comportment, the mannerisms, the sense of decorum. It's beautiful to be here.
What do you think about Lugano becoming a Bitcoin adoption hub?
I think it's fabulous. And adoption begins bottom up. So what we need are city-states like Lugano all over the world choosing to make Bitcoin legal tender, choosing to create local economies around Bitcoin, and choosing to nurture an ecosystem of contributors to the Bitcoin project.
Did you have the opportunity to buy something with Bitcoin in Lugano?
Yes, so the last thing I bought with BTC was a t-shirt at a conference.
What other cities can learn from the Lugano Plan B experience?
So many. I'm based in Texas. Earlier this year, I invited my colleagues from the Salvadoran government to Austin to meet with the Texas Secretary of State's office because I would love to see a Bitcoin embassy open in my home state in Austin, Texas. Oh, that's easy. I brought a couple of my best friends, but we're all Bitcoiners, so I didn't really have to do that much convincing.